good afternoon or good evening or whenever you're listening to this. It could be in the morning. Good morning, but good day to you. This is Dr. David back with another, hopefully powerful for you, episode of the Fresh Start with Dr. David podcast. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had an episode, and actually I was kind of contemplating about what the topic of this one should be in light of the fact that a lot of times I'll pick the topic based upon what's going on in the holiday. And we just recently had a holiday, which was Memorial Day, which was yesterday. And the weekend was Memorial Day weekend. So because of that, I kind of thought about doing the podcast episode about memory. Excuse me. But I also had thought before Memorial Day kind of creeped us up on us about some other topics that I like to talk about, which I think are really, really important and definitely intertwined. And those are the topics of beliefs and behaviors. And so what I'm going to do, or what I decided to do, was tie in the concept of memories, from which memorial comes, with behaviors and beliefs. And I've actually had a lot of clients lately to come in with these kind of issues, where kind of things from the past or their memories of those things affect how they approach life in terms of their beliefs and expectations, which then therefore influence their behaviors. So I want to kind of link those three together in this podcast episode. And I've talked about these things in the past. I've talked about memory before. I've also talked about beliefs. I've definitely talked about behaviors in many podcasts, but I want to kind of link the three together in the hopes that you'll kind of get a sense of why it's so important, right? So let's get started. I hope that everyone had a peaceful Memorial Day. I think I saw something in the news about the concept or the notion that it's not appropriate to say Happy Memorial Day, because for a lot of people, it's a sad occasion. They're remembering people they've lost, whether they were actively a part of a military conflict or not. But, memorial can mean different things for different people. And I kind of have a sense of that. We all have painful memories. And so it may not be a happy occasion, but that doesn't mean that you can't have happy memories about the relationship and the energy that you shared with the person you're remembering, right? And that kind of brings me to kind of the start of this podcast episode, right? We all have memories. Our lives are built upon collections of memories. In many ways, our DNA is a memory system, right? Our DNA is a collection of genes that express things in different ways, and whether they work or not. Our whole body is based off memories, evolutionary memories of how things function, right? One part of the brain does this. One part of the brain does that. This part of the brain can excite this part of the brain. This part of the brain has a feedback loop with your pituitary gland or with your hypothalamus. This part of the brain can inhibit the actions of this other part of the brain, right? And so everything that we are, everything that we do from our DNA, which is the root kind of everything, and DNA results from history or a historical memory of things, up to what we do every day and how society functions. So we're collections of memories. And if the root is a memory, then that tells you something about the cure, right? Just like, or the solution, rather. Just like the root of a plant tells you something about its functioning, and therefore it tells you something about how you can make it function better, right? Often people come to my office because they're looking for the root of something. Where did my depression start? Where did my anxiety begin? Why did my ADHD symptoms start here or there? Or why do they show up in this situation, but they don't show up in that situation, right? A lot of people come to me and they want to get to the root cause of things. And therefore, if you're looking for the root cause of things, you've got to remember where things started or how they began, right? So you and people don't think of things like that in many ways, but in a sense, you get to choose how you remember things, right? And a lot of times it's obvious that people will remember things in a specific way or say they remember things in a specific way because it helps them feel peace or calm or satisfaction in one way or another, right? You could go through history and look at a bunch of different things that we've recorded as history and remember them differently, right? Depending on your perspective. But however you remember it, or however you believe that you remember it, that memory is going to affect your beliefs and your belief systems, and that's going to affect your behavior, right? Um, there are a lot of different ways that you can remember something, right? And what I want to challenge you or influence you to do is use your memories in ways that help you achieve more and be more, right? You can take any situation and you can look at it, even if it was a traumatic one or a painful one, as many of us have some memory that's traumatic or painful if we go back far enough. And you can focus on the trauma, or instead, you can focus on how that made you stronger or better, or how it made you a victor, how it made you a warrior, how it made you a fighter, all those different things, right? Because here's the thing, you're never going to get stronger if you don't get challenged, right? And so part of this equation, when you look at memories, beliefs, and behaviors, is also your focal point. And that's kind of the central thing that ties these three things together, and which is one of the most important things that I try to show and illustrate to the clients that I work with, and that I also try to illustrate and show myself as well. You can choose what you focus on, right? You choose what to focus on, right? If it's raining outside and maybe the sun's trying to shine, there are a lot of things you could focus on. You could focus on the clouds. You could focus on the raindrops. You could focus on the sunlight, or you could focus on the rainbow. All of those things are probably happening all at the same time, but it's up to you what you focus on, right? One of the things that I try to avoid in this podcast is politics. And there's a number of reasons why. Because politics and how we feel about certain things and how we vote and how we perceive things is a reflection of our memories of things and also of our beliefs. Beliefs are so important. And Dr. Adriana James has a very, very powerful book you should find on Amazon about beliefs. Beliefs are so important because they shape how we think, what we feel, and how we respond or behave in certain circumstances. And so beliefs are so important. And you could also express your beliefs in your attitude. People tend to have a positive or a negative or a, some type of attitude based on their belief system. If somebody believes they're being treated well, they're going to respond with a positive attitude, probably. If they believe that they're being treated or they perceive that they're being mistreated, then they're going to probably respond in a different way, right? And so how you believe that a certain circumstance should go, or how you want it to go and your expectations are going to heavily influence how you behave. And they're also going to influence what you get back from society and from other people once you behave that way based off of your perception and your beliefs. So beliefs are so important because they help us form our attitudes and things like this. In this episode, I'm going to go a little bit over than 10 minutes and probably go 15, but I'm going to share some thoughts that I have that kind of reflect how I try how I try, and that means that it's not always for lack of a struggle, how I try to respond to things in positive ways, despite the circumstances or despite past history, right? Like I've mentioned in a couple of episodes, um, you know, um, in terms of the politics of what's going on right now in this country, there are a lot of things that I don't like that are happening, right? And as I shared before, I was not a big fan of either candidate for this election, this past presidential election, for a number of different reasons. Some of that are being talked about in the news right now. And contrary to what some people may believe, I actually do believe that in some instances, President Trump has a good point. I don't agree with a lot of things he does, but some of his thinking I actually do believe in. Now, does that mean I believe in everything he thinks and everything he does? Absolutely not. But I can tell you what's important, and that's my response, right? And this is something that you have to work at, that I work at every day. Number one, I knew that Trump was going to get elected. I knew it from the beginning. And I knew it because of the way that Democrats, and I'm an independent, responded to some of the criticisms and the things that were being thrown out regarding Kamala Harris, regarding Biden, regarding the economy, regarding inflation, or around a lot of things, right? And so I knew he was going to get elected. During the time period when people were thinking about things, the lead up to November, the thing that I was thinking about the most is, what will be my response when President Trump gets elected again? And you know what my response after thinking about it for months and months was? Regardless of what Trump does, I'm going to do everything I can to make my life and the people that I affect, influence, and am around successful. That was my goal, right? So even though I saw something happening that I didn't necessarily want to happen, I decided that my response to it was going to bring about the best possible results. So I said, you know what? That's going to make me work harder, do better, be a better person, be a stronger person, be a more courageous person, a braver person, and everything else. So I didn't look at it as, oh no, everything's ruined. Maybe there was a part of me that felt that way for like a second, but the bigger part of me said, you know what? What can we do to make this the best situation, right? I decided that my beliefs and therefore my behaviors were going to be based upon taking a less than opportune circumstance or situation and making it the best that it could be, all right? Which allows you to shine, in my opinion. So I decided I was going to shine despite the temperature or the shading outside. I don't care how dark it is. I'm going to shine. And I want to help others shine. That's the attitude that I took. And that's because my belief is that I'm going to get better results and outcomes if I have that belief system rather than another one, right? If I have a belief system that everything's going to be doom and gloom and this is the worst thing ever, and God help us. And I'm not saying I never feel those things, but if my belief system and my behaviors are based on that, I'm probably not going to achieve much. But if I base my belief systems on things like, I can do the best I can regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the environment, I have a call to create the best version of myself. I'm going to help as many people succeed as I possibly can. That's the attitude that I chose to have. That's the belief system that I have. And those are the behaviors that I try to exhibit on a daily basis. And I challenge myself and I push myself and I go outside my comfort zones every single day to be more like that. You have a choice to do that too. And let me show you how memories are involved. When you go back and look at past circumstances in your life, you can choose to focus on the negative side of it, the pain, the suffering, the hurt, the betrayal, the disregard, the abandonment, or you can look at it through a different lens, right? And the lens I would suggest that you try to look at it from is this. When I experienced pain in the past, it was because I was around or working with people who had pain themselves. And because they had pain, that pain got transferred to me, whether they intended to do that or not. But because of the pain they had and because of the pain they exposed me to, that forced me to become more brave, more courageous, more strong, more determined, more performative, and better, right? So when you look back at your memories, you have a choice how you frame those. Do those memories help support a positive belief system and who you want to become in the future? Or don't they, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you have to ignore negative things in the past or trauma. No. But where's your focus? You can realize the trauma or the harm or the hurt or the disappointment or whatever it is, but you can also choose to focus on what you learned from that, how you gained from that, how that helped build a better you. And that's your belief system, and that's going to reflect in your behaviors. You get to choose how you respond to life. We all get to choose how we respond to life in different situations. And those responses are partially, at least, based on your beliefs and your memories. So when you reframe your memories from what you lost to what you gained, and you focus your beliefs on what you can achieve, not what's negative around you, it's going to influence your behaviors. And you're going to do better, you're going to perform better, and you're going to be the best version of yourself. And that's ultimately what you want if you want to achieve success. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode. I see that it went 17 minutes, but that's okay. I try to keep it around 10, but this one went a little bit long, but I think it's important, right? You are responsible for what you focus on in terms of your past history, right? And what happened. You are responsible and accountable for your beliefs and which beliefs you focus on and which ones you don't. And you're certainly responsible, for the most part, for your own behaviors and actions and what you do. So take accountability for them, starting with how you think about things that happened to you in the past, right? Because in many cases, when people achieve a lot of success, it began with the roots of pain. But because the person didn't focus on the pain, they focused on what it created and instilled in them, they still became a success despite that. So with that, I'd like to wrap up. I hope to see you soon in a future episode. Be sure that you do something to reset the timbre and the tone of who you are and how you show up every day, right? Whether it's music, whether it's meditation. Music is the easiest way to do it on a daily basis. And I do it when you come into my office. There's a tone that's set by the music that's playing in the background, like the music that's playing now. You can use music to speed things up or slow things down. Sometimes it helps to slow things down just a little bit. And with that, I say goodbye. Take care.